Good morning from the Isle of Skye. Well, it's been a while since I've said that, hasn't it? Probably well over a year. Well, I'm back out again. So I've come to the Quiraing this morning, and the forecast for this morning when I checked last night was actually quite promising. It said pretty much clear skies, which is not something I would necessarily normally come out for, but I came to this same spot here 4 days ago and didn't quite get the shot I had in mind. Because there was a lot of cloud to the east, but I've got a nice bit of colour in the sky, and actually a shot, where I took the shot from, was not actually the normal viewpoint I use here, because as the sun was coming up I thought, well actually, if I position myself differently, I'll actually be able to get, hopefully, the sun coming out the right hand side of the main pinnacle in my shot here. So that was the idea this morning, hopefully getting clear skies to the east, get the sun in the shot, just coming out the right hand side of the peak. But as I walked here, well, it was actually very promising. There was a nice gap on the horizon, but as I got further and further closer to my spot, it normally takes about 45 minutes to get to this particular viewpoint, it just started clouding over. The low cloud came over from the west. It was quite windy from the west, and to start with, it just obliterated the view down below me. But I have actually started to see it recently, and I've actually got a couple of nice shots just before I started talking to you, because the sun actually did appear, although the sun is now way out of position for the shot that I had in mind, but has this really lovely orange glow below me. So I'm also here to actually talk about the Canon R6 Mark II, which is actually filming me now, and I'm using a little RF 16mm f2.8 STM lens. So I'll talk about that as well, and also another lens which I bought and why I bought them. But I'm just going to take another shot now because I get this really lovely orange glow in the distance. Well, actually behind the pinnacles here, not the shot that I came for, but actually it's really quite nice. I'm getting a really nice glow right all the way around the back of the pinnacle here. So I'm just going to adjust my exposure. So everything's going to be almost silhouetted, just with this lovely glow behind the pinnacle there. I can just increase my exposure slightly. So I'm basically just making sure that I'm not clipping my red channel here, because I've got this really nice oranges in this shot. Yeah, that's all good. So yeah, hopefully this low cloud is going to blow through. It's actually windy now, but because the wind is from the east, I'm actually quite sheltered where I am. But if you're down in the main path and at the usual viewpoints at the Quiraing here, it's quite blustery this morning, so I'm actually quite sheltered here. But yeah, I'll just see what happens, and I'll talk about the R6 Mark II in a bit. Well, I'm down in front of the needle now, after being at my previous viewpoint. It didn't look like anything was going to happen there for quite some time. It's still not happening, so it was a good decision to come down. But I went up to the table, even thicker mist up there, so decided to come down to the needle, because this actually can work really nicely in these misty conditions, because you've got, at the moment, you've got the contrast with the foreground, which is very visible, and the needle is just kind of like subdued in the mist at the moment. I've had some little bits of light coming out. It's at the very bottom at the moment. I'm hoping I might get some on the side of the needle. It's not the perfect time of the year for getting side light on the needle, but as it gets a bit higher, it may get some on it. So I'll hang around here for a little while, and yeah, I'll see what happens here. Well, no sooner had I finished my last piece of camera, the cloud actually started disappearing behind the needle, so I can see more of the prison. I can see light on the prison, light in the background. There's still kind of mist on the top portion of the needle, but it's actually looking quite nice at the moment. Getting some, well, I'd like to think I'm getting some very subtle light on the needle, but I don't think it actually is. Maybe touching the top of it, but I don't think the sun's quite far enough round yet. So yeah, the wind actually picked up, and I think that's what's actually, well, that obviously is actually what's blowing the cloud through, because to my right, which is to the west, it kind of looks, I don't know, kind of thinking I can see hints of blue up there. I'm pretty sure I am getting some very subtle light on the side of the needle. Just check my histogram. Yeah, perfect histogram there. So I'm shooting at f8. It's a sharp aperture for this lens at 18mm, 1535, 2.8 lens, ISO 100. Exposure times, whatever the exposure times it needs to be, it's 1/25 of a second, but that doesn't really matter. It's just what it is to get the exposure looking good. So I'm just going to keep taking shots as the light changes. And you never know, I might get something out of this. But I think I got a nice shot from first thing at my very first viewpoint. That, oh yeah, I can see more blue sky appearing behind the top of the needle, so I just decrease my exposure a little bit. They've got a little bit brighter. Yeah. So yeah, it's actually coming quite reasonably good now. So I'm just waiting for those subtle changes. You can actually see the distance now starting to open up properly. I'm seeing more definition, I'm seeing blue sky, I'm seeing more cumulus clouds in the distance. Yeah, it's actually coming quite nice. I'm getting that transition from misty to clearing, which is really quite nice. Oh, I'm so glad I came down here. Just continually checking my histogram as the light levels change. So yeah, I'll just keep taking shots of this, and I'll talk about the R6 Mark II in a little bit. Well, I've got some photos of the needle, nothing overly amazing, but they're quite nice. It kept clearing, and then it would cloud over again and clear and cloud over, and it's kind of clearing down below it at the moment, but there's still kind of a lot of the misty cloud. So the cloud base is quite high at the moment. Well, quite low, should I say, but going quite high. So it starts quite low, goes quite high. So why did I purchase the R6 Mark II? Well, since, it's probably about 4 years now, sometime in 2020, I purchased the R5. It's a great camera, 45 megapixels. But the back end of October last year, 2023, I was over the mainland with a friend, photographing the autumnal colours in Glenafric. And it was a showery day, light rain, nothing really heavy, light rain all day. The camera was in and out of the bag as we moved around the area. And before I put it in the bag, I'd get the cloth out and I could just kind of dab it down to get rid of as much of the moisture as I could. But at the end of the day, the multifunction button, so on the Canon cameras, you've got a multifunction button which sits between the shutter release button and the top dial. And it just became really sticky. Now I use that to change things like the ISO, the what do you call it, the focusing type, you know, whether it's servo or one shot and things like that. And it became sticky and it was annoying, and it happened before. It happened on my 5D Mark IV previously as well, and I got that repaired. So I thought, I better buy a backup camera, but what do I buy? Do I spend a lot of money and get another R5, or do I spend probably half the price and get the R6 Mark II? So that's what I did. And this has got great video. Now the R5 has great video, but the files are horrendously large, and the R6s are not as large as the R5s. 24 megapixels, which is more than enough for most things. You know, I don't print mega large prints. So this is really good for that as well. I wanted a backup camera, and also one that was able to, you know, produce me good photographs as well. So that's why I got that. It was about a week after I was going to Africa, I actually decided to order it, because I knew at the end of November I was going to the Cairngorms for a week, photographing wildlife and the landscapes. And it was there while we were photographing mountain hares one day in the snow, and it was snowing on and off, quite heavy snow. I was using both cameras, but at the end of that day, the R5 just completely packed up, and it didn't come to life at all for the rest of that trip. So I went off for repair, so I was using the R6, and I was using the 15 to 35 and the 70 to 200mm lenses on walks, mountain walks and what have you, so the bag was quite heavy. So after that trip, I thought, well, I need to get a lens which will hopefully do me for the mountains and longer walk days. So that's where, or why, I bought the RF 24 to 105 f4 lens. So it's a reasonably lightweight lens, lighter than both the 15-35 and the 70-200 f2.8s combined by a long shot. And I was thinking, hopefully this will cover most bases in the mountains. There may be the odd time where I need that longer reach, so we'll have to see how that goes. And also I bought the 16mm 2.8 lens, a little kind of pancakey type lens, which will do me for in the mountains as well. It's great for the video stuff as well. I've been using it mostly today. But also in the mountains, it should have foreground. Now it's not mega sharp in the corner, so I'll just have to be careful with that. Make sure that I don't have anything of real importance in the corners, but it's a reasonable lens anyway. So yeah, so that's why I bought the R6 Mark II. I've been using it for maybe 3-4 months now, and it's a great camera for video and stills. So that's the end of this video. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, please hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing and hit the bell notification to be notified when another video is uploaded. And also comments, please give me comments. But until the next one, bye bye.